Hey everyone, hi, this is Samrat Kishore. Global greetings to you, and I welcome you all to the January 2023 General Assembly. This is a monthly call that we do to provide updates on various working groups, um, on what is going on with the various working groups and how we are progressing with the baseline protocol. And just before this one, we also had our EEA PGB meeting as well, where we were presenting the progress, and yeah, it was very well received. So on the General Assembly, we generally call the various working group leaders to present what's going on and answer any questions from the community if they have. So, and towards the end of the discussion today, we are also going to have some open time for community members to present their questions, and we will address them as best as we can. So yeah, thank you so much once again for all of you who made it to the live show. Thank you, Mark and Jack. Good to see you after a while. And Yoav, Keith, Sonal, and Andreas. Thank you so much for making it to the live show today, and all of you who are watching us live and maybe watching us in future. Thank you so much for tuning in. So I'm going to get started with the updates by inviting over the outreach team. Mark Haddle, maybe you can get started.
On what? As far as the baseline General Assembly and what we want to kick off for the year?
Yeah. I mean, any updates, any plans, anything that you want to share with the community?
Oh, right now the big thing that we have within outreach is, letting the world know that we exist.
Know
Quite
that.
frankly, to basically say this is what we're doing, and this is what we have learned in our journeys that led us here. To join Baseline. A lot of us were veterans of of blockchain, and then saw some of the when you start asking the hard questions, we didn't have the easy answers for those. And that's as we started thinking more about it, that's really how the you know baseline really as a technique, a concept, as a design pattern was really brought forth, because we said, hey, why don't we start looking at this through a different approach that everybody else is taking, um, and see where it can provide real practical operational business type value, instead of just saying, hey, we get this really cool technology and this is what we do with it. Isn't that cool? And I'm like, well, we want to have these people that are coming in saying, I don't remember my life before I started baselining. And really what we're putting together is the messaging, the content, really to that end. And we're really focusing on what's being heard as opposed to what we're trying to say. Because, we're looking at different audiences, and, we have the core group of the true believers that get it and understand it, and are totally on board on it. It's, we want to get these people that are kind of passively, somewhat maybe curious, but you don't want to sit there and bog it down with a bunch of, archaic jargon, or just new vocabulary and everything, which is what we did with blockchain, because we were so passionate about it. I don't think we really had the proper sight on, when we were explaining it to other people, what was being heard. We were too focused on what we wanted to say. So that's what we are, really deliberately trying to do within the outreach team, is to, generate this messaging and this content, that is going to have the best impact, so that the people listening to you are going to understand it. Can you explain it, like a 5-year-old, or to a
Absolutely.
5? So that's what we are wind up doing. At the same time, we do a reach out to anyone that wants to contribute, anybody that may have some experience on different use cases that may have been tried before. We would love to have your insight come in, um, you know, um, and really share with us what you may have learned, because it may be something that we might not have seen before. So we welcome any and all input from any interested party, because right now I think a lot of the development and building of the technology gets a lot of the attention and resources right now, but you're getting a lot of people saying, yeah, this is great, but what can it do for me? And that's what we want to say is this is what it's going to mean for you. So that's what we have with outreach.
Yeah, and I'll
Wonderful,
cover
wonderful.
some items too for outreach. So we will have some representation at ETH Denver coming up at the end of February. Our
Awesome.
team from Mesh will be there. Jack, Ian, and some others, and hopefully spreading the word of Baseline and the projects we're doing. In the outreach team, we're also assessing the full event list in Web3 as well as outside of Web3 for the year to start getting some speaker applications in and target the right events, which would include like cybersecurity, supply chain, all those things we've talked about in the past. But this year we'll use our enablement deck. We'll use some collateral from BRI3 as we get closer to packaging that up and making that understandable. So looking forward to a year of road showing our stuff. We're also starting to pump out blogs more frequently, thanks to Mark Rimza and some others, Andreas, our TSC members, with our new blog requirement. We just posted one today from the recent update from Unibright, and we'll have more coming out on applying Baseline to various industries or any topic our groups find relevant, or if anyone has requests or would like to write themselves. It's an open effort. We'd love to get more content out there. Along with that, so we're going to do some more focused road mapping within the outreach team, ideally where we come up with the higher priorities for this year that we can do alongside the developers, which would include documentation for new developers, how to actually use the existing examples and implementations and things like that. So we pretty much wrapped up the outreach calls in January, doing some retrospecting on how the year went, how we want to improve, and looking forward to how the sessions are in the future. And we can always use more outreach members. Any skill or interest you have, we are happy to welcome you to our group. We could use designers, creatives, anyone out there. I think that's it for me, and then I can hand over to Mark R on the actual research work within the outreach team.
Sure, I'll take it from here. The research work group is starting next Thursday officially. We're going to continue to go through Blip 1, which is outlining that end-to-end international supply chain use case. Like I've explained on the show before, the end goal of this is to create a working demo of a trustless supply chain application, which is very exciting. We're working with SAP and other open source community members on it. And stay tuned. Please join the work groups if you're interested. I sent out an email, invited everybody for the year. Please reach out to me or Sonal if you would like to be included. So stay tuned for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark, and thank you so much, Sonal, for adding those updates. I think the core here is to also open it up, so sort of send out an invite out to the wider community that you can contribute, you can write blogs. You can, if you identify a new use case for baselining, just bring it to us. We'll see how it can be converted into various, either blips and blogs and a combination of the two. So let's do that. And of course, everybody is welcome as always. We need people from various skills to come and join the community. So let's now call upon we have next research. We've covered maintainers. So you are Angin is not here. You have
I can take it away. Thank you very much. So I will cover the core dev updates, kind of specifically the SRI BRI3 effort that's been ongoing. So a little update from the last GA that we had in December. With the kind of late December holiday season, people were on vacation. There were illnesses and kind of responsibilities outside of baseline that came up within the team. So the updated estimate for milestone 3 completion is now end of January. Things kind of slowed down at the end of December, but should now pick back up now that everybody's kind of back. in the swing of things. So since the last GA as well, we've had 2 SRI PRs that were merged through, the DID authentication and the authentication cleanup PRs. We spoke on those and kind of their purpose a little bit last time, but since then they have been reviewed by the maintainers and have been pushed into the repo. There's also been 2 new PRs that have been opened. One regarding content addressable hashing and another regarding login command handling. Those 2 things should be reviewed within the next probably couple days by the maintainers, and barring any comments or updates, should be pushed through as well. There is a PR for the workgroup setup coming soon. This would be following updates being made to what's currently in main in the front end to solve some MetaMask login things. Once that's kind of been resolved, that PR for workgroup setup will be found as well. As far as kind of planning for what's going on currently and in the works, the team is discussing a proposal for the BPI messaging. In that discussion, there was the decision to make a kind of 2-part plan moving forward. So the first phase of this would be having the BPI host a NAT server, and then all the participants would pub sub into that. And then phase 2, once that's complete and there's bandwidth, would be to extend that so that the BPI talks to all participants' NAT servers separately. And the decision kind of thought process there is that the main goal and mantra of this BRI3 effort is to make the most simple kind of bare bones implementation that still satisfies the needs of baseline. So the first phase is kind of doing just that, making sure that it's still what it needs to be. And then the extension would be to improve on that in a way that would make it more kind of usable. Lastly, all of this that I've mentioned, as well as everything else that's going on within the SRI BRI3 effort, can be found in a blip. There is a single blip that is tracking all of these things. It's got links to the Google Drive that has all of the different documentation and proposals and things that we're discussing and leaving feedback within, as well as all of the different GitHub issues, both closed and open, that would allow anybody who wants a quick glance at kind of all of the different components, an easy place to find everything. As well, just a shout out that we have core dev calls and meetings every other Monday that everybody in the community is welcome and invited to join if they would like to keep a closer track of what's going on or just kind of be more involved. So yeah, that's what's going on with the core devs and the BRI3 effort.
Thank you, Yoav. This is very interesting. And so somebody said a few days back to me, and I don't know why that example just stuck to me. And they said, when the duck swims, you can't notice it from the surface of the water, but the actual activity is going on under the water. So I always feel that we the updates that we come up with, especially in the core devs, is always, there's so much motion happening. And thank you so much for, to you and Ongin for and Keith to lead that. And of course, under the overarching guidance of Andreas. Thank you to all of you for keeping this going. And I think that's the lifeline of this whole initiative, and which we are all contributing. So kudos to that. I will now move on to standards updates. So Andreas, do you have any updates for us?
Yes. So the since the PGB in its end of November meeting has ratified the A procedure for EA communities projects standards to progress from draft to working group draft to draft release to draft specification to project specification. we are now in a place to actually go beyond the current draft release and get a draft specification approved by the PGB. For that, we have to meet certain requirements. The key requirement here is that will require additional work is that each requirement must be testable. Unfortunately, the PGB has not defined what testable means. That is currently out as a request for clarification to the PGB. In the meantime, we are in conjunction with the Layer 2 standards working group, we are collaborating with Charles on trying to get operational definitions finalized of what that is, given the fact that we have way past 300 requirements which need to have testability statements, and we have in just the core spec. And since we have three standards documents that need to be worked on, this is a significant body of work that we don't really want to undertake in one go, but want to do this iteratively. So the editors got together and decided that we're going to work through each section one by one and be extremely explicit as to testability, and then do PRs by sections and get that reviewed and approved, such that we can, in collaboration with Charles from the EA, to ensure that we are in line. In the end, it's up to the working group to and then the TSC obviously to say yes, this satisfies testability, and if the PGB agrees, then that's fine. So we'll have to we will work through that. The goal is to complete this effort by the end of Q1 in order to get this to submit to the PGB as a draft specification and get it approved, because it requires also socialization within the wider OASIS ecosystem. And then we want to utilize the completion of BRI 3 and then the Interop Fest to have the appropriate documentation completed of at least 2 reference implementations, such that we can promote the specification to full project specification by the end of the year. So because the standard also requires interop, has interop requirements that needs to be demonstrated, and therefore that requires at least 2 reference implementations, 2 working reference implementations, which we currently do not have. So the promotion to final project specification is contingent upon successfully completing the Interop Fest between BRI 1 and BRI 3, and that is currently under discussion because we need support from the community to actually execute that. And so roadmap item, I'm sure Samrat, you will talk about that in more detail as we come to the TSC updates.
Thank you, Andreas. I think roadmap will pick up later, the following month when we finalize something. So since that is yet to be finalized.
Well, do you want me to talk a little bit about the Interop Fest that we're planning? Because that's like the major thing. So and I think that we had this started discussing that during the last QuartF meeting. It is incumbent upon the community, and if we don't do this, we can all go home. Because A, the standard will never become a full project specification, and B, we will have claims of baseline implementations, but no proof, because every implementer will claim without being able to produce a proof of compliance. So it's it will become a circular argument at that point, and the entire community can basically go home. So the Interop Fest is a what would be called in Latin a conditio sine qua non, a condition that must be met. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So that is the key activity for the year, which we are currently looking into agreeing on the actual use case. One in particular is discussed about agreeing on currency exchange rate, because that is a significant open issue for ERP systems, which to use, with what method, and with the frequency of updates, and is there any reliable source. The big problem is not one ERP system. The big problem is two ERP systems that are using two different methods and therefore two different exchange rates, agreeing on an invoice, for example. That is, so you get invoices kicked out and processed and churning up money because the exchange rate is wrong between US dollar and yen, or euro and USD, right? Because Oracle system in the US uses the New York spot rate, or the Chicago spot rate, and the generating system uses the London spot rate. Oops. Probability that both are exactly the same is 0. So that's so it's beyond just the baseline. It would be a good idea to generate a reliable Oracle that produces agreed upon exchange rates for multiple different types of methods. Spot rate in a particular region, moving averages, average for a month at a particular point, etc., etc. So that can be, so beyond that, there's a wider benefit if we actually were to do that, and actually have multiple companies working on that together. Hence, trying to get someone like SAP into the mix as part of the Interop Fest is going to be important. We'll also could also reach out to Oracle, something like that. So anyway,
or our everyone's favorite Oracle, Chainlink, as well. The other Oracle.
Yes, I think Chainlink and ERP systems is not something that goes together in one sentence.
I have a video about that.
Yeah, no, I know, but it's the thought of an enterprise using Chainlink as a data oracle for the USD euro spot rate is borders on the outrageous. I think no auditor, and especially the enterprise risk departments, will say it's like, no way in hell we'll take the Bloomberg rate, and you guys worry about the rest. So it's like I've been in those discussions, and that is just not going to happen. It's like because that is going to be part of the 10Ks and the 10Qs of publicly traded companies, and if you suddenly have your Oracle being investigated by the SEC for security violations, is not a good look. Right, so the source has to be considered. That's why I think this is a absolutely crucial step, that you can have large companies coming together, synchronizing on something, and then saying, look, you can use this. Right, this is you have 5-10 companies that are agreeing that this method is correct, and using these sources, we're generating these rates.
Yeah,
So
I would, to kind of follow on to this, you're right in that, companies may prefer like a Reuters or a centralized data feed, for this data. But at the same time, too, one of the interesting things you could do, as we're synchronizing this data across partners, that's actually interesting data for Chainlink to observe, right? So maybe not necessarily pulling it in as the price feed, but to contribute that data back is, something, that, Chainlink node operators in the ecosystem would be interested to see how are
To
currencies using,
utilize.
yeah, to
utilize.
observe it, right? Yeah, I
Right.
think that's the more compelling use there as well. So it's a circular thing in a sort of way, right? Because yeah, the Chainlink Oracle itself is designed. The price feeds are designed to solve a specific problem that was in smart contracts, not necessarily enterprise systems.
Correct. Right. But the bigger problem is in enterprise systems, not in smart contracts.
That's true. Yep. It's
right. So it's an ancillary benefit if Chainlink were to use that price oracle. But I think we're actually tackling, and incidentally with trying to prove interop, we're actually tackling a problem that no one wants to use wants to spend money to utilize 10 different price feeds to come up with a price, so that everybody uses their own, and therefore they are by definition not in sync. So by combining and saying, hey, here's an enterprise that uses Bloomberg, here's an enterprise that uses Reuters, here's an enterprise that uses the what's the London rate?
Or in some cases,
anyway,
you have a finance analyst who sits down once a week and updates it manually.
Yeah, and updates it manually,
right.
Whatever. But there's
right.
using a feed, right, or just Googling it. It's actually very offering 10 different price oracles for different methods of derivation of a price is probably significantly better if it's backed up by several large companies that are providing those data feeds and then synchronizing them. So it's actually a something that is avoids companies having to pay for 25 different feeds, and maybe you can generate one that's actually synchronized. Anyway, I think now we're getting into things that are further down the road, but I think it's an argument why this interop use case might be able to be turned into a federated network of large enterprises providing exchange rate price feeds as a public good, for example.
And Andreas, I just sent you an article. Maybe we can opine on this later on, but that's about price being fetched, and one party spending the money for it, and the rest of the people in the workflow using it. So how do we divide that?
We'll see. We'll figure this out. But the interop fest is something that can get this also larger discussion rolling. And if we have something that we can demonstrate, that's probably useful for a much wider community and might be able to generate more interest in the baseline community than anything else. So actually, thank you, Ryan, for actually bringing that up, because you're the one that had that.
Thanks, man.
Remarkable idea.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's it.
Oh, go ahead, Andreas.
I said that's it. Exclamation point. Go ahead.
Okay, I was just saying, with that, we move on to the next section, which is brands. So we're going to invite Sonal to talk about it.
All right. So I know we've mentioned the roadmap multiple times here, but Along with that, we do need to start our fundraising for the 2023 grant funds. So our community members here will be tin cupping for grants this year, so we can fund the efforts. Non-sponsors can also contribute through the Open Collective. I will share the link on the YouTube chat, but basically we will have a large effort on behalf of the outreach team to get our funds in place. And then we will start reviewing the incoming applications as well as reposting the RFPs that we actually have circulating in a few developer communities right now. So that will be one of the vital points in the next couple of weeks, is figuring out which companies we have supporting us and how we can fund our projects for the year. That would be it. The one grant we still have in progress from 2022 is the BRI3 work, as mentioned, and hopefully we'll have that paid out in the first half this year as the work nears completion. And that is it for me.
Super. Thank you, Sonal. And yeah, we all will get together and make sure that this is a success. This endeavor of collecting grants is a success. The roadmap, I think this is something which you can part for the next time, which is because next week we're all going to finalize it within the TSC, and then we can present it on the next month's General Assembly. And the next working group is collaboration. So it's a new working group with other standard bodies. So this is something which I'm going to be deeply immersed in, and Andreas and others supporting it. So this is something which we intend to kick off after we finalize the roadmap and sort of reaching out to the right projects where we can collaborate. But if at all anybody in on this call or anybody watching us, if you have any ideas on whom we can collaborate with, please do reach out to us. Do send us an email or a message on Slack about which projects do you think are best suited for us to collaborate with, and we will explore that collaboration. So that's something which I would say we are taking it slow for now. So this month we don't have an update on collaboration. Any thoughts, Andreas, Sonal?
Yeah, I think a main point too is that these collaborations will ideally be with various SDOs, standards
SDOs, yeah.
development organizations, because these
Similar to
standards
baseline.
bodies. Yep, exactly. And Oasis itself has several standards that we hope to get
Yeah.
closer in touch with and bring on in future shows.
Absolutely.
But there's
I've
mobility
said-
consortiums, there's standards around all sorts of industries and consortiums. So I think starting to enter those spaces and explain the baseline protocol and how it can be leveraged alongside their standards is our goal here.
Right. I've said that before, and I would say that again. Why this working group is really important. I came to Oasis via cybersecurity standard, and then I discovered there's baseline going on, and this is extremely interesting and something similar to what I want to do in my startup. So yeah, this is. I hope that we will find a lot of books where we can find use cases, implementations, collaboration, etc. via this working group. So yeah, let's see. I can just say Godspeed. Let's see if we read something really interesting. The next one is on articles and blog posts. So we have a schedule decided. I think we've already spoken about that. There's a new blog post which came out via one of our community members, I would say, not sponsors anymore, but it's called Invite One. So they published Invite One. It's a platform. I'm yet to explore details on what they've done, and I would invite somebody from the company if they would want to come in and demonstrate it for the larger community. But yeah, there is BRI3 block coming soon. There's ZK EVM block coming soon. So yeah, this series is turning out to be very interesting, and I'm myself personally inspired to write more than what I've just volunteered for. So yeah, this year is going to have at least, let's say, 12 to 15 blog posts. So there's no shortage of content for people to pick up, read interesting comments, and add comments and questions for us. So that's I think that's all for the agenda for today. We now can open the floor for open discussion, and we have some two. We have couple of people, long lost people who've shown up today, Jack and Ian, and yeah. So let's check the pulse. Let's see what's happening. What are you up to, guys, these days?
Lots of zero knowledge development. We're still working on the battleships use case to demonstrate different proving systems. I think
Interesting.
you can talk about how there's now Aztec Noir, which can be shown off for, I think it's very close to being baseline. So, and Halo 2, and then moving into 2023, we're really excited to be working on recursion, and I guess we're kind of waiting for, we're not the ones building recursion, but with recursion in various different proving schemes, taking that and iterating on what we've built to finally get state channels going. So yeah, that'll be very interesting. We're really looking forward to taking that and throwing that at a bunch of different real world use cases once it's proven. But otherwise, we're just advancing zero knowledge repositories and educational resources, I suppose, in the meantime. So yeah, I guess, Ian, if you want to talk a little more quickly about Aztec Noir, because there's now I know that, to quote Andreas, I think the tool of the trade is CIRCOM. Noir is another very interesting SDK that's out there, DSL, for accomplishing these things. So
yeah, definitely. I'm gonna link the site real quick, because I know on our past calls we've always linked battleships.com and it's never worked, but now we actually have Battleships Noir hooked up there right now, so you'll actually be able to play for once. And we should have the CIRCOM version working up within a week or so, but right now we have a working version, so we just linked it to that site. But yeah,
Can you show it to us in 5 minutes?
Oh, what?
Can you show it to us in 5 minutes?
Yeah, Jack, do you want to play a game?
Sure.
While you're getting it up, Ian, can you tell? So it's like I don't think a lot of the viewers understand like the differences between like domain specific languages for circuit creation. So if you could do that in 60 seconds and then talk a little bit about Noir, sort of like the pros and cons that you've encountered while using it, because there are others out there like Cairo or Zinc and stuff like that. So it's interesting to look at that.
Yeah, for sure. I think Jack's gonna show off the game. So I'll go ahead and explain while he sets it up.
But I thought okay, I'll share my screen.
Oh, sorry, I thought you said you were gonna host it. Yeah, so I wouldn't consider myself the most qualified to compare between ZK EVM but DSL, but a ZK DSL just kind of lets you write general purpose zero knowledge proofs that you could then deploy to a network of your choice. Pretty much, it's kind of chain agnostic. So it provides a lot more flexibility for actually writing proofs in a ZK EVM. But to compare Noir to other ones like Socrates or CIRCOM, CIRCOM's the only other one I've really played with, but I'd say Noir does a great job of here, I gotta talk and set up the game up myself. Noir does a great job of abstracting away a lot of the complexity for writing proofs, whereas CIRCOM is something a bit lower level. You're kind of actually having to take into consideration, you're almost building out the circuit, and like it's kind of comparable to the underlying cryptography. Noir does a great job of abstracting away from that, and it's much more familiar to actually writing code as a developer would, not so much incorporating that thought into the cryptography. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, I remember writing circuits for the Bradenburg library in C++. And that's
Oh, yeah.
that is, well, I mean, that's if you're using the Aztec Bradenburg library, that's
Mhm.
what you need to do. And that allows you to do recursive proofs, but that is a huge pain in the rear.
Yeah.
But it's because it requires you to also manage proof carrying data, which tends to be fairly large. So that's an interesting, that's actually an interesting thing that you need to think about, and when you actually want to implement recursive proofs, and especially if you need to keep around the proof carrying data or whether you can dump it. So it's interesting technology questions once you start to look under the hood, and you know, people just want to use it, but there's actually some fascinating engineering challenges when it comes to that.
How many times a week do we have to play Battleships? Probably once every few months is the way it's been. But yeah, Jack, how was the did you start a game already?
It wasn't, it was saying you're already in a game, and I was not able to
Okay.
get into it. So I just, you know, I'd try one more.
That'd be really convenient if it stopped working once we're on this call again.
That'd be convenient.
Promise it was working a week ago or a few days ago.
Yeah, this is where I was stuck last time.
I believe you.
Uh
Deck demos, man.
yeah.
No, that's Gorley Fawcett. Yeah, and it's not showing in the open games.
Try and think. That might be
Let's
an
cover
issue.
some crypto news in the meanwhile.
Tell us the news, Samrat. What's new?
I don't know.
It'll be working.
It's just I think today when I met a lot of people, largely people are just talking about, oh, this is a new, and this is interesting, and I probably can talk about it. So it's a platform called Pantas.io. So they like the largest. They claim to be the largest. I don't know. I've not seen their volumes, but they claim to be the largest NFT platform in Southeast Asia. And the unique thing about this place is that they've got so many regional cultural variations, in terms of languages, liking, etc. That they say that they've got most of the artists on board, which is a huge claim. So I met the CEO today at an event, and that was pretty interesting. And they say that, yeah, forget about the price of the cryptocurrencies and the market where it is heading. What is important is that the artists keep coming on board, and they keep publishing their work on the platform. So they've not lost the trust on the space, and they've not lost trust on that overall model. Maybe while you're bringing this up, Jack and Ian, we can talk about Ryan. Ryan, what you're up to these days?
Oh my, there are some exciting things going on at Provide, and maybe some things so exciting I can't share yet. But what I can share is all about Shuttle. So Shuttle is available to today, and using it as a low-code designer to compose zero knowledge into different circumstances. This is something I'll be showcasing more about, and I know. For me personally, I come from an SAP background, and I build things, in the SAP context around baseline. But what you'll come around and see very soon is some more education and hands-on resources for any kind of developer to utilize Shuttle, and that's a really easy access point to BRI1. Right, there's a programmatic way of getting into BR1 with the CLI and running the stack. But what's really great is when you're using shuttle, you know, all of the baseline services and associated components, they're all publicly hosted on provide.services, right? So that's a commercially supported infrastructure that's there. But of course, the rest of the stack, you know, through PRVD is open source. So as an organization, if you wanted to run that yourself, that's up to you. If you want to go through a service provider, we have resources for that as well. But as we mentioned, you know, one of the things we're looking at, you know, here in baseline, you know, just, you know, across, you know, at interop level was, you know, looking at that price feeds example of, you know, developing a business use case. And you know, I'm looking forward to, you know, working with outreach team this year in terms of, you know, really putting together like really solid, like business use cases that, you know, entice executives, entice CIOs to not just come to baseline just for the novelty sake of Web3, but they come to us for, you know, solve real business problems.
Super.
Yeah.
And yeah, I also happen to be on a Twitter space today with Create Protocol. So what they've done is they've created a Canva for creating NFTs, and they're multi-chain. So while they started off with Ethereum and doing stuff on Polygon, now they're supporting, I think, 5 chains. But yeah, that's also a cool project to look out for. I've seen these guys grow since about 2 years now. They've presented at various forums, and the founders are I mean, I think they're at their second or third startup where they've had successful exits in the past. So cool project to look out for sure. And that would be one. In fact, we had one of the co-founders on one of our Baseline India shows once. I remember that. Awesome. So yeah, cool stuff is happening. I'm least bothered about the market prices right now. Of course, the larger outlook does matter. You know, and depends on, you know, what one's portfolio looks like. But yeah, these are interesting times. Okay, so I think we're through with the agenda. Sorry, Ryan, you were saying something.
Oh, I would just say, you know, like, you know, this time of the world, you know, it's where your grit really shows through, and you go through the crucible, and you come out at, you know, a more refined, you know, better built, you know, project or person, regardless of the price, you know, and you see the, you know, prices go up and down in your portfolio or your life, and then you realize you're not the numbers on the screen. You know, you're entirely something else valuable to the world, regardless of what those numbers are. So that's my Mr. Rogers moment of the day for all y'all today. So
I think it
that's
is
all for
changing
me.
this, you know, in this particular cycle, it is changing, because previous cycles, what I used to see is, generally, this is just my observation, but prices used to be like a leading indicator. I mean, prices going up, down, developers flocking in, you know, to certain projects just because the prices went up suddenly. So that is not happening these days. I mean, people are more focused on tech, etc., and the team backing it, etc. So really glad you know, that is happening. You know, that's got like widespread adoption of these concepts. Cool. So that's it, I think, from our side. Ignacio, you want to bring in your perspectives? Anything that you're excited about, particularly working on these days?
No, I think I mean I think I would like to get back, you know, at some point in time to baseline in IoT devices, right? I think we started on that given field of discussion in the previous call, and I think that part is especially is going to have a lot of data volume, and how we can handle that at the same time you get that across you know, multiple parties, right, on a safely manner. So that's the part, because I think Baseline has a great capability for privacy, but there's a huge promising value on the security side. Yeah. So if we can get a bit of, you know, a time focus on that, it will be really helpful.
Yeah, Agree. Agree. Cool. So yeah, Sonal, happy to hear from you in future on who all are going to ETH Denver and what are we presenting, and any ideas that we could all group together around. Happy to contribute there.
Yeah.
And yeah, that brings us to the end of today's show. Thank you all for tuning in and with all the zeal and the updates. Maybe we'll meet Jack and Ian in a future show to see the demo that we missed today. It happens all the time, don't really bother. So thank you all once again for tuning into the Baseline General Assembly of January 2023. We'll see you next week on the Baseline show with a very interesting speaker, a veteran of the industry and also co-creator of the security standard for Ethereum. Watch out for the announcements. Thank you.